Welcome to Jurassic Park.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while?
Do you want to know what it is?
There's no knowing where you might be swept off to.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Shepherds we shall be, for thee, my life, for thee.
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
There's a special rung in hell reserved for people who waste good scotch.
He peed on my rug.
He peed on the dude's rug.
Do your worst.
Final report. The commercial starship Nostromo.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Welcome to your feature presentation, the podcast where we explore stories through the latest movies and pop culture. I am your host, Heath Fall. We are talking about Return of the Jedi today. It's going to be a good day. With me today is Andrew McKay.
Heath, what a pleasure. I've been looking forward to Return of the Jedi talk for almost the entire year we've been doing this.
Oh, really? I thought you hated this movie.
Just because I hate one character in it right now doesn't mean I hate this movie.
Ooh, well, we'll get into it. And with us, the rogue worship leader himself, Scott.
Hello there. How's it going, guys?
Good to have you on, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm happy to jump on, and any chance I get to nerd out about my favorite Star Wars movie, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's kind of our hot take theme is I think this is my favorite Star Wars movie.
You too?
And
really?
Whoa. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No way. I don't come across very many people, and maybe we'll have to dive deep into this as to why. I have my reasons why, but being on Instagram, having as many followers as I do, occasionally it comes up if I'm doing a Q&A.
Yeah.
You know, inevitably somebody asks, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? And I tell them Return of the Jedi. And I have to give the caveat with the asterisk, like very, very closely followed by very closely, slim margin, Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Because
you
feel like have to. I feel like you're not a legit Star Wars fan unless you say Empire Strikes Back, right?
Yeah.
I get a lot of heat for putting Return of the Jedi just a little bit above it.
Like immediately, pardon me, immediately the offense goes up and you're like, but also
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back says like, Empire Strikes Back's really, really good. Like
Exactly, right.
so close. They're like, okay, yeah.
You know, you have to give that nod or else you get taken out behind the shed. But
yeah. I
feel that.
Yeah, I think Empire's a better movie, but I like
absolutely.
Return of the Jedi better.
Yes.
Like that's my
I think that's it for me. Like I know cinema wise, you know, as far as filmmaking goes, absolutely 100% Empire takes the cake. But for me, there's nostalgic reasons for Return of the Jedi. There's some other character, you know, we talked about, you know, least favorite character. Like there's characters in there that I love, costume design, vehicles, ships. There's some other things in there. Video games had a big influence for me. So Return of the Jedi like hits the nostalgic factor for me for many, many reasons. But yeah, I would love to hear, Heath, like what makes it yours, because I explain my reasons and people understand them, but like it's very rare I come across somebody else who it's their favorite movie. So what's your reasoning for that?
Yeah. Wow. I think it's a lot of what you said. So nostalgia. This was the first Star Wars movie I ever watched. I remember I'm actually going to ask you guys this too. Like, what was your first memory of this movie? Mine was, I was 5 years old and my older cousins were all downstairs watching Return of the Jedi. And I was like peering over the ledge because I wasn't allowed to watch it because it was too violent, because, you know, that's the household I grew up in. Yeah. And I remember my cousin's like, Heath, are you supposed to be watching this? I'm like, no. And I just like ran upstairs. So that was my first memory, but I think I love the vibe of it. I love that we're back on Tatooine, the Jabba stuff. It feels like this movie, which I want to get into later, it almost feels like this movie is just two big parts. It's just Tatooine and then Endor. And I don't know, I just like that. And I like the speeder bike chase. I was always playing, you know, like my bike was a speeder bike. And the end confrontation with Luke and Vader and the Emperor, I just feel like that is so powerful and perfect. It's like a mini movie of itself just there. And I don't know. So that's just some of my reasons. But what's your guys's? What was your first memory of this movie, and why is this, Scott, specifically your favorite?
Yeah, for sure. My first memory of this movie. So I look a lot younger than I actually am. I actually turned 40 this year. I was born in 85.
Whoa.
And so, you know, Return of the Jedi came out in 83. So that movie was 2 years old when I was born. And so, you know, as I grew up, you know, even 4 or 5 years old, like the toys that were in the stores, they were all Return of the Jedi, you know, so all the Kenner products, all the 83 stuff was still like on those pegs, and they were hot off the press at that point. And so I remember, you know, siblings having the Star Wars toys, and they were all from that era, right? And then probably one of my earliest memories, before I even saw Return of the Jedi or any Star Wars movie, we had a Super Nintendo growing up, right? We had the original Nintendo first, but then we upgraded like soon after the Super Nintendo came out. We got it right away. And I remember Lucas Games, or Lucas Arts is what it was called. They released, you know, they had the Super series, Super Star Wars, Super Empire Strikes Back, and Super Return of the Jedi, right? So again, because of when I was born, Super Return of the Jedi was like the newest Star Wars game. So like at that point, I did not know that that was the third movie in this trilogy. So all I knew is it was new. It was the newest game. So, and that had come out a few years after. That came out in the 90s. I'm not 100% sure, but we bought it, and me not knowing that I just thought this was a standalone movie, right? So the whole story from beginning to end, I learned by playing the game first. So I was Luke,
cool.
black Jedi robes, green lightsaber. That was my first introduction to Luke Skywalker, who would end up becoming my favorite character for years and years and years. And so just that classic storytelling of, you know, at this point, I didn't see all of the character development that Luke had gone through in the previous two movies, but I had seen this guy come to save his friend on Tatooine. He confronts this gangster, this big, you know, Jabba the Hutt, and then, like, you know, saves his friend. They go on this mission to confront, you know, his father. And at that point, I had already known that Darth Vader was Luke's father. So like that was completely spoiled for me from the very get-go because of the game, and then because that was the first movie I ended up watching. I loved the game so much, I had to watch the movie too. So then I was just captivated by that classic good triumphing over evil, I should say. And just that final confrontation, that final duel will forever be etched in my brain as just one of the greatest fights that I've ever witnessed on the silver screen. So for me, that's like, it started out with the video game, spoiled from the very beginning, watched the movie because of it, and then realized I was like, holy crap, you know, I'm like 7, 8 years old, and I'm like, oh, there's more, and to me, they felt like prequels. You know, it was the original New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, they felt like prequels because this was, Return of the Jedi was like the main Star Wars movie for me. So that's, you know, just like you're saying, Heath, that was the reason that for me, it was like, these are my earliest memories of it. This is how I was introduced to it. I already had known about the big reveal with Darth Vader. I'd already met the Emperor. So all these other things were periphery for me. So, but yeah, definitely nostalgic. Definitely loved it. Played with all the toys, all the video games, and loved that green lightsaber, man. Absolutely loved it. So that's peak for me.
Wow. That's
what
awesome.
a beautiful story. I love that. I feel like that taps into the love of Star Wars that I have, that you could genuinely, anyone can sit down and watch a Star Wars movie and have a good time. Like, you could sit down and watch episode 2 and for the most part track it. Like, you can sit down and watch episode 6 and just have a fun time. And I just love that so much about Star Wars. That's so good. My first memory of this one, of Return of the Jedi, was my oldest brother putting in the VHS tape for me. So I think I was around A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back enough as a child where none of the like secrets were secrets for me. Like you said, like Vader being Luke's father was already spoiled since I was born. But I do remember yeah, oh, absolutely. It was like, yeah, it was a trope. Like, I remember that trope coming up in Toy Story 2 with Buzz Lightyear and Zurg. And I was watching Toy Story 2 and I was like, oh yeah, Star Wars. So, it's just everywhere. And yeah, I remember the first time, or the first memory I have of Return of the Jedi is my brother, pulling it out of like a box set, of the original trilogy for VHS, and it was like gold, and then the helmet of Darth Vader was black, and it fits over the top of the box. It was the coolest box set ever. And he pulls it out, and he was like, "Do you want to watch the third Star Wars movie?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think so. Is it cool?" And he's like, "Of course it's cool." And he pops it in. Oh yeah, the like big moment for me, I think, was also the Endor speeder chase, like the speeder bikes, just so fun. Yeah, that's great.
Wait, so Andrew, was this your first Star Wars, or that was just the memory of the third?
No, that was I think that was the first earliest memory I have of Return of the Jedi.
Oh,
my brother and I must have been watching through like the box set that we had.
Okay.
And that was the first time that Return of the Jedi registered to me, because the amount of times that I just walk into a room in Star Wars would be on, I think I was so young that I wasn't able to pick up like which movie is this, what's going on. Yeah, so that one was the first time I remember this is the third movie. It's its own thing. Like, so it was great.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I feel like Star Wars has that where, yeah, I definitely saw toys before movies, and the toys are so cool. You pick it up and you're like, what is this? And like, you start like making up stuff in your head, and then sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's not. I've got I don't know if you guys can see in my corner over there, but I've got a Sand Trooper. And that was my first action figure I got from Star Wars. And I was like, this guy is the main character. Like, obviously, this guy. And then it's like, then you watch the movie, it's like, oh, I think he's in 2 seconds, but it's okay. Sweet.
With the orange shoulder band, is that what you're talking about? Oh, cool. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's pretty sweet. Yeah, so this movie directed by Richard Marquand, pretty much the only thing he's done. I looked through his IMDb and I hadn't really seen anything else. And I'm sure, Scott, you know this being a Star Wars guy, but just how it seems like George Lucas kind of like shadow directed it anyways, like at least what he says, so it's an interesting experience. I think, going from, the director from Empire, why am I blanking?
Oh,
what's his name?
Wow,
Kirshner, Irvin Kirshner.
Oh, Irvin Kirshner, yeah.
I
Guys,
think
that's
he
so
was
embarrassing.
I can't believe you two forgot that.
Shut it down.
All right, I'm just gonna.
I can do that again. You can edit.
Yeah.
Cut. So Irvin Kershner, the director, of course, of Empire Strikes Back. But it seems like he was such a commanding presence that it seems like Richard Marquand, unfortunately, was just kind of like a more passive director. And I think they were like, let's get this done. I mean, especially you've got like Harrison Ford and like Carrie Fisher on set. Like, I feel like you probably had like a, come on, kid, let's get this going, And,
Yeah.
but still, I think they pulled it off in a really cool way. I mean, the fact that Star Wars was made is crazy, but the fact that the trilogy was done so well, and I think wrapped up very well. Do you guys think this was a good wrapping up to the trilogy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like for me, it was, the completion of the hero's journey, the classic hero's journey, and having that confrontation at the end. Everything was building up to this moment, and it was building up to Vader being redeemed, the Empire, being dismantled, the Emperor being destroyed. That's what you wanted, and this was maybe before, like nowadays everybody's like rah rah Empire, or you go on Reddit and it's like the Empire did nothing wrong, and it's like I get it, the Empire has such cool designs, like everybody will like, I feel like Star Wars maybe started the whole revolution of like rooting for the bad guy, just like loving the bad guy. I don't know if that's true, but it's just so cool. I mean, Vader is so cool, the designs are so cool, and so I was kind of as I grew older and I started to get around more Star Wars fans, there was always that sect of people that were just rah rah Empire, and I'm over here going, I like the rebels, I like Luke, like I want the good guys to win, and that's just so. I think maybe there's a lot of us in the Star Wars fandom, and you have those like segments, but I think the bad guy Empire segments are a little bit stronger. I don't know if you guys see that too, but I felt a little bit, at least in my friend group, I felt like I was like the goody two shoes for liking Luke and wanting him to win, so.
Yeah, especially like coming off a lot of people's opinions of Luke in A New Hope. And they're like, oh, like whiny kid.
Yeah.
You feel like you can't like Luke through and through. Right. Like that's almost a weird opinion to have.
Yeah.
Or if you do like Luke, it's only Return of the Jedi Luke, like powerful Luke. But you mentioned like some of the first, do I like the bad guys in this movie? Like experiences? Yeah. That was definitely my experience as well, because I'd never really seen the bad guys look so cool and do such cool stuff. Like skip back over to Empire Strikes Back. The like chess move.
Who's the director of that movie again?
Irvin Cushion. Who knows? The precise chess move strategy that Vader's using on Bespin is so cool. Like you reach a certain point in that movie where you're like, he knows everything. Like you cannot get over this guy. You can't do something without him knowing. And that's like so cool.
Strategist before Thrawn, right? Like he
was
like the one kind of. It was cool seeing him in that white room in Bespin, like the stark contrast of him sitting down at like a buffet table, you know.
And he just catches a blaster bolt.
I always like the joke too. I think it was like a Family Guy sketch. Is like, oh, that dinner afterwards. Like, did they just sit back down and actually eat? They're like, all right, well, you've been here, but let's eat real quick. And
oh man. But I think it holds true for Return of the Jedi as well. Like Luke does look really cool, but in those scenes that we'll get to it, I'm sure. Those scenes where he is standing next to him, and Vader's holding his lightsaber, it's still like, man, you don't look as cool as your dad right now. Like your dad's the man. So
yeah. And there was also that like brief, you know, back in the 80s when this came out. And Heath, I apologize if I'm like jumping ahead here.
No, go for it.
There was like in the time, like before my time, obviously when this had originally come out, people were kind of asking the question like, is Luke going to turn to the dark side? And they did this whole thing with his costume being black, and then the symbolism of his of the piece coming out and revealing the white at the end, and the symbolism that meant. And so I think, you know, you did start to see a little bit cooler of a design on Luke that started to look a little bit more Imperial. It started to look a little bit more Sith. You know, is he going to turn to the dark side? I honest to God wish that I could have experienced that level of speculation. I mean, this is back before Reddit, you know, and back before the internet completely. And, you know, you have these cells of people talking, and it's like, what do you think Luke's going to do? Is he going to turn bad? Is he going to do, you know, because it was just, Empire was so different than any other sequel or any other movie, because it had like the bad guys winning. It left this giant cliffhanger. I think that was so ahead of its time. And, you know, people were genuinely wondering, like, is this whole story going to end up being a tragedy because Luke ends up falling to the dark side at the end?
You can imagine a time when all you had to do was not read a newspaper.
Right.
Or like specifically ask your friend, you know, like you could buy a ticket and go, and I just, like ignoring all the leaks. Heath does this. Heath will like cover his eyes for a trailer in the theater if he doesn't, like he shuts everything out, and I just can't do that. And I admire that about Heath. I wish that I could like lock it down, you know, so I could have those experiences.
For context, Scott, it's when I know I'm going to see the movie, so I'll try not to like spoil anything. Like,
so you don't watch any trailers whatsoever?
It depends. Like, we've done some trailer reactions, but if it's a Nolan movie, Alien Romulus, I was just like, I'm going to go see it, so I'm going to try to save myself from any visuals, anything, you know. So I try to do that sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not every trailer. He does watch some trailers.
I do watch some trailers, yeah. Because mostly I watch trailers to like, honestly, like the Fantastic Four one. I'm like, I don't think it's going to be good. Let me see the trailer and see if it changes my mind, you know, because I think sometimes like that. But yeah, so let's jump right into our movie discussion. You know, we're only 20 minutes in, and then we'll start this movie. But no big deal. Yeah, seriously, it's all just for fun. It's cool to see this because I feel like all three of us have a lot of love of Return of the Jedi. And I think it gets it's revered because it's a classic, but I think during the time that you just had these three, this was probably the least liked, I would say. I just get that vibe. And so it's cool to kind of see, like, it's actually my favorite, and I think it's so good, and it's kind of fun just to dig into like why that is. So we got the beginning. Man, I don't know about you guys, but when this started, I realized how much the Phantom Menace took vibes from this intro. Like the back of the guys, the Imperials going into the ship, like you don't know who anybody is, all the gray, like all the, like, it's not boom exciting yet. It's just like Empire stuff, you know, and it was just, man, I just felt that vibe. But yeah, so you got Vader showing up, there's a new Death Star, and we go right into Jabba's palace, and it's, man, like, what is your guys' experience with Jabba's palace? Like, it just gets me so excited. I'm like looking at every corner and trying to figure out, like, I feel like I always see something new.
Yeah, I don't think Empire gave us like this world building kind of setup in the beginning of the movie, quite like the Cantina in A New Hope and Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. I mean, like, talk about world building from a, you know, nitty gritty, like, let's look at what the seedy underworld of this galaxy far, far away is, because, you know, we have a large part of this, you know, this trilogy takes place in the Outer Rim, right? So we're seeing the lived in, dirty, lawless places of the galaxy before we're introduced to the core worlds in the prequels, and we get to see a more refined version of that in the prequels. But yeah, like, that's what I want to see when I watch a Star Wars movie. Like, I want to see this blend of old and new, you know, the new technology, but with the nitty gritty, lived in, dirty world of Star Wars. And I think Jabba's palace gives you that. Like, and I love so much, like in Super Return of the Jedi, in the movie itself, and even in newer games like Battlefront 2, it's like anytime that I get a chance to be in Jabba's palace, now Boba Fett's palace, you know, it is, as a Boba Fett fan, I have to throw that out there, because now currently in canon, it is no longer Jabba's palace, which I think is great. But but as far as that set goes, like, I love looking at behind the scenes. I love exploring it in video games. It's just dark, it's dingy, and then you have all the creatures that we get to see more of. And those were the toys that I had. Like, we talked about this earlier. I had a bunch of those toys from '83 that were like the Amon, you know, like the different weak ways, like the different aliens and the species that you see, the Twi'leks. And that just gives such a rich, robust feeling to the world building as far as people, creatures, and like the sets go, which I thought was really, really great. So I love it. I love Jabba's palace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what an excellent way to make the universe even broader and make it feel like way more vast than you actually see. Because Heath is right. Like, I think he mentioned this in the beginning. This is basically Tatooine and Endor for the entire movie, but you get such a sense of like the diversity, you could say, of everything out there, just walking through Jabba's palace and like looking in the background and like checking people out. It's so cool.
Yeah, I love how
different.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. You're the guest. After you.
I was just gonna say, like, you see a different like side of things if you want to think about Star Wars as a whole, like the whole Empire versus the Rebels being more of the macro scenery. Now, like, Jabba's palace gives us like a micro look at like what other conflicts there are in the universe, and which is really, really cool, because you see kind of the gangster underworld. Like, you didn't get to see that in any of the other movies. You saw, you know, and this is, you know, I've seen before the special edition version. So like, Jabba and Boba Fett are not in A New Hope. They're not originally anyway, right? I love that they put them in later, but like, they were not part of that. So you heard about it from Han's point of view in A New Hope, and you saw it in the Cantina, but and there was an element of danger in the Cantina, obviously, with Ponda Baba, you know, and the whole cutting off the arm with Obi-Wan doing that. So there was like that danger, but like Jabba's palace, I think, amps it up a bit. Like, he was literally feeding captives. He had people chained up, a prisoner, and he was feeding them to a freaking monster. Like,
Yeah.
if that's not like a dangerous, seedy underworld, I don't know what it is. You know?
And everyone goes, when it happens, they're like, yes,
Yeah,
another
like,
one. You're like, oh, I'm surrounded by absolute psychos.
Yeah, especially because the other his other buddies are even like the other, like the pig guy. What are the pig guys called?
Gamorrean.
Yeah, Gamorrean.
Yeah, Gamorrean guards. Yeah.
That they're like, oh, that's hilarious. It's like, even you guys are like,
Yeah.
come on.
Pigs, like, there's, like, approval.
Oh, man. I remember, speaking of the, so Luke in front of Jabba.
Yes.
I remember watching this, probably, it was a rewatch. I was probably 11 or 12 years old. And the first Lego Star Wars original trilogy video game had just come out. So they did the first one, which was like 1 through 3. And then I played through 4, 5, 6. And I was like, gotta watch them again, obviously. And when Luke falls through the trap door into the Rancor pit, I was like, she should have just double jumped. Like, I spent like 25 or 30 hours playing through basically with Luke every chance I could get, just force jumping around. And I'm like, Luke, what's the problem, dude? You're falling, but you have one more jump. You got to use it.
That's great.
Another thing, I try to think about, what it would have been like to watch Return of the Jedi after Empire. But like, Andrew, I don't know if you felt this because you maybe watched him as, you're a kid, but maybe you watched him there. But for me, I'm like, I would have been freaking out. Like, wait, does Luke not have a lightsaber anymore? Because we saw it lost, and like you see him pick up the bone to like fight the guy, and you're like, just watching it straight, just Jedi. I never assumed, like, I always assumed that his lightsaber was somewhere, I guess, I don't know. Did you guys think about that at all? Just like that, were you worried he didn't have a lightsaber?
I remember thinking, like, he must be so powerful with the Force now that he left his lightsaber at home.
Ooh.
Like, he was like, I don't need that.
Yeah.
And I was pumped to see that. Like, Luke just Force pushing dudes everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he walks into the complex, right, and he chokes one of the Gamorrean guards, before Bib Fortuna comes up, I'm just like, oh man, like, this is it. Like, he's ditched the lightsaber. He's all powerful. He's like, I'm like, he learned how to do that on his own without Obi-Wan's help. And this was before like theories about like, oh, Jedi can't Force choke. Like, that's not a Jedi thing. Like, and so this is before all that. And I'm just like, oh, he's powerful AF, right? I'm just like, that. I thought the same exact thing, Andrew. I thought he didn't need the lightsaber anymore. And I was super disappointed. I remember when I first saw the movie, like, disappointed because I was like, I actually really like the lightsaber. Like, why did he get rid of that? And again, I hadn't seen Empire at that point. So, and I wish they would have left that scene in. There was that deleted scene of him building the lightsaber in the cave.
Yes.
And he gives it to R2. But, like, I think that would have, like, defeated that whole reveal then when he had it in his head and he launched it, for the sail barge scene. But yeah, I thought the same thing, too. I was just, like, excited because I was going to, seeing Super Saiyan version of Luke, but I did miss the lightsaber. I do like that a lot. It's a laser sword. Come on, who doesn't like a laser sword?
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's that scene, that deleted scene where Luke is, building his new lightsaber, and then he's being tempted by Vader, like, as if it's like no distance matters, that he's being tempted. And I'm like, I feel like that also really would have brought down the movie even more, because I'm like, that's depressing. The fact that, like, there's someone in the back of your head being like, give up. Like, like, that is a slow torture. That's terrible.
Call me now in my head. Like,
yeah.
Do you accept the fees? No.
And then the jump, the Sarlacc pit. I do want to say Bausch I love that bounty hunter. I just think Leia looks so cool at that. And I was noticing in this watch through too, that I love how she comes in playing a character. She walks like you don't know what type of creature this is, just like fully armored up. Gets a Boba Fett nod, which is like, okay, respect.
You got to mention the Boba Fett nod, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. That's probably his best move, right?
Yeah.
But then when Leia comes back out, which we don't know it's her yet, but she's walking like Leia. like when she's sneaking in. I just think that's such a cool twist. Like she's not like a stoic bounty hunter anymore. She's, the princess. But yeah,
That's
Luke, go ahead.
That's some great nonverbal storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, like, bounty hunters sneaking around normally as you see them walk into a scene is one thing. You go, yeah, they're a criminal. Of course they're going to steal. Bounty hunter posture change, like how quickly they're walking, you go, that's not who I thought it is. It's amazing. I love it.
I mean, can we also talk about how the fact that, like, it looked like that thermal detonator was active, so Leia legit brought a thermal detonator in, activated it, and threatened a crime lord to blow up this whole place. And so much so, I mean, she played the character so well. She had to have known, she didn't have Han there to train her. Who the heck taught her to be so brazen,
Yeah.
to gain the respect of Boba Fett, because that was a legit dirty move that worked.
Mm-hmm.
That could have gone sideways,
Man, that's such a good point. It was not Bail Organa, I think.
Right? No.
It was, what was her little droid in Kenobi?
Oh, yeah.
What was that? No, it wasn't Do. That was the little cone head thing.
Man, that little droid would teach her to hold a bomb for sure.
Take this grenade.
Here, kid, take a bomb.
The Discman. Yeah, Leia's Discman is what.
Yeah, that's what.
Andrew, a Discman is actually a small CD player.
Hey, I know what a Discman is. I was homeschooled, so 1995 stuck around until 2007.
Yeah.
So
Leia's droid was named Lola.
Lola.
59.
Yeah.
I think look it up because that bothered me. My daughter loved that thing for sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kenobi.
Which is why it's in there. I'm always like, as an older, like, as an adult Star Wars fan, you're like, it's like, that's stupid. And then your kid's like, I love that. It's like, okay, whatever.
fair point. All right.
Yeah. It's like, all right, fine, whatever. Oh yeah, but so what I was gonna say too is the flip, the reveal of that lightsaber when Luke does the little springboard, you jump and then I love it. Like da 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 da. It's just what a moment.
Even today, I have goosebumps. Just you humming that theme, like it absolutely just inspires greatness, because you're just like, oh, he is going to shut this guy up. Like, and the fact that Leia is the one that does it is really cool. Like she's the one that kills Jabba. Then before Luke was about to mow everybody down, and basically did, all except for him.
Yeah.
Great.
Leia's like, nope, I got this one.
Oh yeah. And that was powerful too, because I mean that awesome display of just independence and her just like, maybe I'd say taking the bull by the horns, but I mean just literally choking out a guy with a chain. How much more powerful, and confident can you get? I think that's really cool that they wrote that into her character.
Yeah, I think that's definitely my argument for always talking about, like, there was no strong female leads, or characters. Like, I mean, it was an ensemble, I'd say, but just like, man, like Leia was always commanding, and it was never It was never in a way. I don't know how I want to say this, but it was never like out of character. I feel like sometimes like she used her skill as Luke used his and Han used his. It wasn't about even like male and female. It was just like, that's who that person is. That's what they do.
I want to say something like not spicy. This isn't like a hot take, but you know how they're changing all the names of like
a mild take.
Slave Leia. You can't say Slave One. We grew up with, that's just what they were called. So like Slave Leia. Is just what it wasn't derogatory at all. But I do have to say that in like the newer novels, the fact that like in canon the entire universe refers to her as like Hutt Slayer, I think is like so boss. Like I think that's so cool that became her identity then. So like I'm like, okay, I can like I will not ever stop calling the fire spray, patrol gunship the Slave One. I'm not going to call it Boba Fett's starship. It is always the Slave One, but Slave Leia to Hutt Slayer Leia, I can kind of forgive that one a little bit, because that is pretty badass. So I'll take it.
I totally agree. Agree.
Yeah, and it's tough because I think we see Leia in the sequel trilogy as an old lady, but I feel like we don't get any of this Leia. Like we don't get the thermal detonator Leia. We don't get the action, and it's tough because like she's older, but still I'm like, I don't know. I don't think, but we just talked way too much.
they gave Han and
Yeah.
Luke a little bit of action here and there, and so it's like, why couldn't they given her something, at least maybe strategic, or something a little bit more commanding than how they portrayed her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I think one of my favorite Leia type scenes from the sequels is that, I don't know, I think it was a flashback of her and Luke training in
that was cool.
the woods.
Yeah.
And they're like fighting each other, and she has her lightsaber. They have those like covers down. I'm like, can I watch
him
that
down?
for like,
And she
yeah,
took Luke
please,
down.
like 30 minutes or maybe 20 minutes. And I feel like that piece of Leia goes from like diplomat, princess, and down just as a story, like an arc. We can go up, but up into Rebel, and we encounter her like end of Empire, beginning of Return of the Jedi, through Return of the Jedi, as like, yeah, I'm part of the rebellion. I'm scrappy. I can do all this stuff. And then when we see her in the sequels, she's like back to diplomat again. And I think that was a little dissatisfying. Yeah, for me.
Like, Disney could literally print money if they just gave us peak, like, stories from peak Leia, peak Luke.
Yeah.
Peak Han. Pecan.
Pecan. Hey, I love pecans.
I'm
you know?
hungry now all of a sudden.
Pecan.
But if they gave us those stories instead, some of the new stuff that's coming out, like, I can't knock. Like, I'm a big fan of the Mandalorian. I love the direction they're going with the Mandoverse. But it's just, give us more of that time frame. Like, here's the thing. I love, to bring it back to Return of the Jedi, I loved Return of the Jedi so much that I literally 1998, 99, when they announced that there was going to be a Star Wars movie, a new Star Wars movie. And at the time, I was young, I was probably in my teens, early teens, and I thought to myself, this is great. We finally get to see what happens to Luke after Episode 6. I didn't know it was a prequel. I didn't know it was Episode 1. And then, like, I started seeing the merchandising for it, the marketing for it, and saw Episode 1, and I'm like, that's a funny thing to call a sequel to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And so I was actually incredibly disappointed that it was a prequel, because I wanted more peak Luke. I wanted more X-Wings. I wanted more lightsabers. I wanted, like, what happens after the Empire gets toppled over. Like, surely there's still remnants. There's people trying to pick up the pieces, as we've seen in, like, the Battlefront, 2 arc and things like that. I want to see more of that. And I think there's a lot of Star Wars fans our age that have always wanted to see that. And I think the Mandoverse is giving us a little bit of that. But that's just how much I've loved Return of the Jedi, because I just wanted to see that story continue.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we said on our Last Jedi, I was not the Return of the Jedi, the Last Jedi, that I think that was the biggest mistake, is that we didn't get Han, Luke, and Leia in the Millennium Falcon together. And it's just, it seems like such a waste. Like, you literally had those actors, and now, sadly, one has passed away, and the other one's pants can't stay up. So, Andrew,
What?
You didn't laugh, so I don't know if you saw that.
What?
Mark Hamill was giving an award, and his pants fell off.
No way.
Yeah. Then he talked about Trump, so I don't know what's going on there, but I
I'll have to look that up.
yeah, I think it was it was not the Oscars. It was the one right before that.
Globes, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, one pretty recent, and it was just like, I was like,
You have Mark Hamill being current Mark Hamill, and then you have, Harrison Ford's never liked Star Wars and wanted, has wanted so badly for Han to die.
Right,
Finally got his wish in Episode 7. But I agree. You had such a missed opportunity there with the three of them. They could have just, like, printed money and just had solid gold, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, it's a shame. I was even hoping in the Boba Fett show we were gonna get Han, like a de-aged Han, to show up or something, but yeah, it's okay. We're still getting good stuff. Maybe at the end I'd love to hear some Disney Star Wars from you, what your opinion is and stuff. But we got some Bausch here, and I need to switch over to my notes on my phone. It was one of those times where I always like to rewatch the movie, but I was like, had to do some in at lunchtime. And but yeah, what do you guys think about the edition? So I've only seen the special edition, so the VHS. Some big changes are the musical number, the Sarlacc beak, things like that. So that was not new to me. I've always experienced that. Scott, have you seen any others or?
Yeah, I had seen, like, my original first watching of Return of the Jedi was on VHS, and I didn't have the box set like Andrew had. We just had like the.
Oh, we all can't be Andrew.
Yeah, sorry, boys. Sorry.
That sounded epic, though. That sounded like a core memory right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we watched it on VHS. It was not the special editions. Shortly after that, because I think I watched it back in the 90s, I believe, early 90s. And then I think special editions came out in, 97 or something like that, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to like an FYE or something like that and seeing like the soundtrack for Return of the Jedi. And because it's so nostalgic, I grabbed it. And at that point, like, I didn't pay super close attention to those details, like the song that was played in Jabba's palace. But I remember like buying the soundtrack on cassette. That's how old I am. And then playing it in my car and coming across this song called Jedi Rocks. And like, that's just because I love this movie so much and I just immersed myself in it. That's just the song that I heard because I loved the movie so much. I grabbed the soundtrack. And then, it wasn't until I did watch the special editions then when they came out in theaters in 97, went opening night to all three releases. And I wasn't super disappointed. I didn't even really catch the differences at first. They were so subtle. But now that I look back, it's just like, yeah, I get it. Like, I was too young to notice those things. But now I get it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not huge, despecialized only, because I do, like, I'm a huge Boba Fett fan. And there's something about the special editions that, like, they had him in that cool pose, just like talking up the ladies. Right?
Yeah.
It was like,
Grabs her chin.
Yeah. Just like, okay, that's freaking cool. He's like, he's this like smooth kind of like guy. He's not just this, merciless bounty hunter. He's actually got some riz, right? And they threw my favorite costume of Boba Fett's is the Return of the Jedi costume, but his Empire helmet is so iconic. And they combine the two. So I'm like, dang, it's like the best version of Boba Fett because you have the coolest parts of his costume all in one. So I love the special edition version of Boba Fett. So there is a special place in my heart for the special editions. I know people will probably flame me for that, but I like them. I'll take Return of the Jedi any way it comes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just looked it up, and the box set that I have was the 1997 special edition.
Yeah.
I wish I still had it. The box that I had
Shame.
was 1997. I know there's someone selling it for $1,000 on eBay. I don't think it's gonna sell, honestly. So those were special edition. I think I've seen an earlier version of A New Hope, but honestly, I don't think I've seen an earlier version than Empire or Jedi. So I'm pretty sure that the Sarlacc beak is there forever in my brain. Like, I don't know if I've seen an alternative.
That's how I remember it too, for sure.
Yeah. Like whatever other special edition type things there are, but yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting because I didn't notice. I think looking back, you can tell just digitally, like, oh, that doesn't look quite right. Then, the rest of the movie and stuff, but none of them really stand out to me. I think the Jedi Rocks is like, it's such a odd choice because to me, it's always been a part of the movie. But if you look at it as this was added, I'm like, interesting. Like, this is what you were like, this needs to be in the movie, And
yeah, very, very strange. That was a choice. I mean, 14 years later, it's like, let's throw this completely random. And there are people, and I have to look it up because I can't remember how it's pronounced, and I don't want to be an idiot, right? But Lapti Nek is the original song, and there are people that just like, that is what Max Rebo's band played, and how dare you do that to Max Rebo? There are some Max Rebo stands out there that that is the song, not Jedi Rocks, and I get it. Like, both songs are a little hokey though, and both serve their purpose. But yeah, Jedi Rocks is just, at this point, it's iconic, probably for bad reasons. But to me, it's just it scratches that nostalgic itch because I remember that so vividly, more so than Lapti Nek. So
yeah,
man, the music of the original trilogy, like specifically the Jabba's Palace song that they sing, is ingrained in my brain for Star Wars Battlefront 2 the 2005 version.
Oh yes.
Because you could go to Mos Eisley and play Hunt and be the Jedi and like all the super characters or whatever. And that music is just on a loop. Like there's like 4 or 5 songs from Mos Eisley that just go over and over again. And so that Boogie Day, wah da 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 da, like whatever song that is, oh, it's stuck. It's okay. Yep, it's stuck in there forever.
Yeah. It's a banger. Like I'll say it's a great song. Does it fit like that era of filmmaking? Does it fit that? No, but like it is just what it is, and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's corny. It's cheesy, but I love it. I'll jam out to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the changes they made on the Blu-ray release are definitely more of, because I had seen the special editions so many times. Those editions to me always stand out, and I wish they wouldn't. And I think I even like them. I think I like Vader yelling no at the end, things like that. But it's weird because it's so, when you've seen Star Wars 500 times, you know, you're like, that's not, it's different. And it makes you think about it, which I think is a bummer. It's not that it's there. It's like that I'm like, now I'm like, do I like that? Do I not like that? You know, but it's such a small part. And then everyone else, I love people like, if people are listening to this podcast, they're probably Star Wars fans, but people are like, what are you talking about? Yelling no, you know, it just cracks me up. But yeah, so we go to, so then Luke and the Millennium Falcon, they split off the X-Wing, which I got to say, I think the X-Wing is my favorite ship of all time. I love the X-Wing. It's just
your favorite sci-fi ship of all time?
I didn't say that, and I'll preface as my favorite Star Wars.
Oh, okay, cool.
Fighter.
All right, it's specific enough for me.
What were you gonna push back on? Do you think there's another?
I was gonna say like there's gotta be some. I think there are cooler. Whoa, okay.
Oh, did you just tell yourself to whoa?
Yeah, Andrew, calm down, dude. Per capita, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The number of ships in Star Wars means that Star Wars holds and owns the coolest ships in sci-fi across the board, right? Yeah. But I don't know that Star Wars has the coolest ship in sci-fi.
Ooh.
I think it might be close.
I'm curious what your favorite would be. What beats out?
I was gonna say, do you have something?
Dude, immediately, maybe we're gonna find out what kind of guy Scott is. Immediately,
the Nostromo is not cool, Andrew.
Shut up.
It's a big truck.
The Nostromo is cool.
It's not cool.
No, I wasn't gonna say the Nostromo, because that's just a trucker. Yeah. I was gonna say the Ornithopter from Dune is a dang good ship.
You know,
it may be not as a spaceship, but it's a sci-fi ship.
It is a sci-fi ship. Yes.
Yeah.
My son just turned 13 about 3 weeks ago, and on his birthday list was the Lego Ornithopter. And I'm like, no one's gonna buy that for him. Like, you know, I was going to, but we had already I'd taken him to Universal for his birthday. That was a lot of money. I bought him a couple other things. He's a huge Lego collector, so I was like, I'm not buying that. And then my mom saw that on his birthday list, and it was freaking on sale too. So she got it.
Yes.
And I was actually pissed. I was like, seriously? Like, not pissed because my mom bought it for, like, I was like, you didn't buy that for me? No. But
yeah, exactly.
But it's just like, she spends so much money on my kids. Because that's what you do as a grandparent, you know?
Yeah.
And
for sure.
I'm happy for him, but at the same time, I go into his room and I'm just like, can I hold it? Like, it's just so cool. Yeah. And Lego did such a fantastic, sorry, this is way rabbit trail.
I love this tangent.
A fantastic job with the mechanisms inside. There's like the landing gear and the ramp. There's the folding wings, and there's the fluttering of the wings too, which like is incredible. But yeah, the Ornithopter is fantastic, but the X-Wing still beats it for me anyway. So.
Yeah, that's okay. I understand.
Original. It was that original. You know, yeah, the Ornithopter's wings fold, but you know where they got that from? The X-Wing. No.
That's a good point. I think I will say that the Ornithopter is the only cool ship in Star Wars. I'm sorry. In Dune. The Ornithopter is the only cool ship in Dune, every other ship looks like trash. It looks
that's
so
true.
bad.
We were
They're
talking
just
about we were watching
circles.
too, and the circle thing that comes in, like the I was like, oh look at the Death Star, like
yeah, exactly. Yes,
Yeah, we had a whole episode on Dune versus Star Wars, like because they had some type of fight of like, did you steal that from me? It's like no, it's like sand crawler, sand planet, no,
Tatooine,
yeah,
for sure.
But
anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to throw us off.
that's okay. It's so funny. I loved how you came in like you're like, this is the ship that's the coolest. But I think you were just like, I'm not ready to agree. The X-Wing is the coolest.
No, I don't think so. So Luke's X-Wing is tight.
It is tight. Yeah.
It is tight. I like it.
Star Wars Lego set was the Dagobah X-Wing. So yeah,
you're right.
My heart.
26 years ago.
On that note, Andrew, say something. I'm gonna go grab something.
Man, I do have.
Let's just make this a Dune podcast now. No, just kidding.
Are we? Heath is gone. Let's talk about Dune.
Let's talk about Dune now.
Yeah, there's a few Star Wars ships in Lego form that are on my to be acquired. Like I have to own them at some point in my life. The number one is the giant Millennium Falcon.
Yes.
And I think that the Falcon goes down. Sorry, that seems weird. Goes down higher. It's higher on the list of cooler ships for me than the X-Wing. I think the Falcon is cooler than the X-Wing.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, sure.
But I do think the Lego X-Wing fits well.
There it is.
So
that's the one. I'm actually mad jealous.
Is that the OG?
This is the original. So my buddy gave this to me. This is the, I think, 98, 97 when the first one came out.
Was that the Dagobah one? Did you take the green things off of it?
No. So this was the first one. This comes with, oh my gosh, Mustache Boy.
Yeah. It was like in
Biggs.
Biggs.
And it comes with like a little like train thing, you know.
Yep,
but yeah, so like,
is there a compartment on the nose?
Yes,
like
there
a little
is.
thing that folds up on the nose.
Little photon.
There it is. Yep, I had that one too.
And I love new Lego, but this is so cool because it's like it's all pieces. Like it's all just very normal stud pieces. You know, I don't know. This is
so cool.
It was released in 99.
99. Yeah, that's cool. I have other X-Wings since then, but I just like, man, that first one is just so cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Love it. So stuff it, Andrew.
Yeah. All right. I take it.
All right. So in Return of the Jedi, back to the movie talk, we have the Yoda scene. It's interesting because we're doing things like going back to Tatooine, we're going back to Dagobah, but they still feel new and fresh. And like, I just love this scene between Luke and Yoda. I say this way too much, like when I get in bed at the end of the day, and I'm like, rest, I must, you know? But I love it. I love Frank Oz. I just saw, have you guys seen the Saturday Night movie? It just came out a couple months ago. No. So it's about the first hour and a half before the first Saturday Night Live came out. And I didn't realize this until I watched the movie, but Jim Henson and Frank Oz did a sketch on it. And so they were in it, like Frank Oz was in it for like 2 seconds, but it was hilarious watching like fake Chevy Chase and this guy interact. And he's like a timid, like, I just want to do puppets, you know? That's cracking up. But what did this scene mean to you guys? Like the whole Luke and Yoda and kind of return, and then the Obi-Wan as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that for me was like bringing Obi-Wan into the mix, like as far as like Force Ghost wise, because we heard his voice in Empire, right, in Dagobah, but we didn't see him, so it was just cool to see. And then even after Luke leaves, then Obi-Wan and Yoda had more of an interaction than talking about, you know, there is another, which was powerful too, because like in the theater, you know, you watching this, whether it was originally when it came out or if you watched it like I did, the special edition when it came out, you're just like, that passes by you so quick, and you know how you have to like process something, you're just like, wait, what? Another? What does that mean? You know, and you don't realize until later that he was referring. I think he was referring to Leia. You know, as far as the the other that could have been the hope, because they always referred to Luke as the new hope, but it was like, could any offspring of Vader's or of Anakin's had been the hope that they needed to redeem him? And I believe, yes, I believe like if Luke would have gotten killed, Leia could have stepped in, and that would have been cool to see too, right? But I'm a Luke stan, so I wouldn't have wanted to see Luke die. But yeah, for me, that scene was just like, it was abrupt. Like the whole, you visit Yoda again. I'm here to complete my training. Oh, by the way, I'm dying. Like that was a little bit sad. I would have hoped that, I'm trying to think back to when I originally watched it, and I would have loved to see a little bit more training happen, because that's so mysterious, and it's such a mystique in Star Wars, the whole training, because we saw a little bit of the physicality of it on Dagobah, but we don't get into like the mysticism and the actual like telekinesis. Like, how do you do that? It's just like, feel. And it's like, no, I want a little bit more than that. Can you expound on that a little bit? And I was hoping that would happen in return, but it didn't. We just like, by the way, go die. So yeah, I think that was a little bit disappointing. Now looking at it with fresh eyes, like you see those fan theories about like, oh, the cloak that he uses to cover himself was Qui-Gon's cloak, and things like that. And you try to appreciate those little details. And so now I don't care as much that Yoda dies, but like it is sad. Like I wish he could have been in it to see with his own physical eyes the culmination of his training Luke, ultimately redeeming Vader, and seeing that happen. We see it happen later with him being in the same Force Ghost realm as Anakin, so you do see it, but but you're like, oh, they're ghosts now though. So
yeah,
that's how I feel about it.
I remember thinking, like, okay, this is gonna be a redemption for Luke, who if you're just watching like 4, 5, 6 straight through, you probably think that him going to Bespin, if you're really smart and intelligent like me, was a mistake and that he shouldn't have done that. I hate that he did that.
Yeah.
Heath has made an argument to me that it was necessary for Luke to be who he is, and I agree. I still I just don't like who Luke is in Empire Strikes Back. But going back to Yoda does feel like a little bit of redemption. Like, okay, everything turned out okay-ish, pretty fine, and now I'm going to go and right my wrong. That's how it felt for me. So then to get there, and Yoda is like, bye. Like, oh, bummer, dude. Like, you totally missed out on all of that stuff. All the mysticism, the knowledge, the everything is just gone. And he kind of has to make it up for himself, which maybe makes him a better Luke. Hopefully, by the end. I think that the books after Return of the Jedi would support that. You're like, okay, I gotta... Oh, what's that? High School Musical. I gotta go my own way. I'm so sorry. Yeah, Luke has to find like how he's gonna do it, and so I think it was maybe necessary for his character to not use Yoda as a crutch. But you never know.
Yeah, and we see Luke experience loss there too, I think, which was important, because we'd seen him lose Obi-Wan, but he barely knew Obi-Wan. So this was
aunt and uncle as well. But that kind of the movie kind of blows over that.
Yeah,
which is
exactly,
weird.
exactly.
Yeah, he's like, my aunt and uncle are dead.
Yeah.
Can I become a terrorist with you? And he's like,
Exactly. Well, there's nothing holding me here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I got the vibe too that like when Luke says, I want to finish my training, and Yoda's like, you have everything you need, but like Yoda's sad, and I got the idea that maybe by Luke going through these trials, he kind of completed his his training, but then it's sad because Yoda wishes he didn't have to do it that way. It's like, if you had not gone, I could have taught you. And looking back, I don't know. I think Luke, like Han and Leia, would have been okay. But I don't know. Like that was my argument, Scott, is that I think Luke to be true to his character, had to go save his friends. And the Luke that goes to save his friends is the same one that tries to save his father. So that was my argument for like why I think that's good. And Andrew is just like, the X-Wing sucks and all that stuff.
Do I even like Star Wars?
I think you're right, because like going back and looking at the decision Luke made, it was because Yoda literally says he's reckless. Like he says he doesn't think about he's always looking off into the future, not where he's currently at. And so he's completely missing the Dagobah training, and he's just thinking selfishly of saving his friends. So he makes that decision. But then I think in return, we come back and we see a Luke that he didn't come back and be like, okay, you said I was going to fail if I left you. You said I wasn't ready to confront Vader. I did confront Vader. Yes, I lost my hand, but like
but don't bring that up.
The dark side. Yeah, don't bring that up. I didn't fall to the dark side like you said I was going to. So I think there was a little bit of Luke coming back and being like, not I told you so, because that's not in Luke's character. But it was kind of, if you look at it from Luke's point of view, like a little bit redemptive, coming back and saying like, okay, I'm ready now to complete my training. And I think Yoda says you have everything you need because he was proven wrong, and we don't have the lens of the prequels. Like if you just watch the original trilogy and you don't see the hubris and the mistakes that the Jedi Order had made, largely at the hand of like the leader of the Jedi Order, which was Yoda, there's a lot of mistakes he made. And I think he realizes he's flawed. If you want to look at it through the lens of the prequels, like he realizes he was wrong, and he was just like, I don't have anything more to teach you. Like you, and that is that moment. And Andrew, you said you were a teacher, right? Or you are a teacher.
Yeah. Yep.
So like when we are trying to bring somebody up, whether it's our own kids or a student, or I have a young worship leader who I'm bringing up in my church, who I'm trying to duplicate myself in, and when they do these things that kind of one up you. What does Yoda say in The Last Jedi? He says, do you know what, Andrew? Go ahead.
They grow beyond. No,
they are what we grow beyond.
They are what we grow beyond.
Yeah, something like that. So it's like, I think maybe Yoda realized that in return. Like he saw that Luke proved him wrong. He saw that he didn't fall to the dark side. Like, and his hope was renewed. And so, and that's why he says to Obi-Wan, that boy is our only hope. No, Obi-Wan says that. And then he says, no, there isn't. Yoda says there is another. But like, I think they're looking at Luke as that hope, because he realizes, okay, he's got it. He's standing on his own 2 feet. Like, I was wrong about him. And I think you get a little bit of the sense of that with his saying, you have everything you need. You're good.
Yeah. It was funny. We also had a disagreement about that Last Jedi statement from Yoda. It's because I like it because it shows like, hey, you hope the person you're training exceeds you, and Andrew has a different take on that.
Man, you paint me in such a bad light.
Get him.
My only problem with Yoda saying that in The Last Jedi is that he's saying it to his apprentice, who had become exactly what Yoda was. Like a hermit on a desolate island planet, hiding from his mistakes, not willing to face them, and just acting a fool.
That's a good point.
I understand that that's super simplistic. That's very like, I'm minimizing everything that Luke has gone through and all of the things that he's accomplished and is dealing with. There might be even more that Luke is dealing with in The Last Jedi than Yoda had to deal with, because the Jedi failed under Yoda's leadership, but it was Luke's fault that all of those Padawans died. That Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren killed everyone. Like, he instigated that.
Like,
yes,
you bring in,
and it was his family.
The Jedi Order used to not want this whole idea of attachment, because that brings a whole new layer to the onion that Yoda never had to deal with, because he didn't have those ties. And now Luke had. Not only did somebody destroy his what he had built, but it was his own nephew.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely agree with that.
I think now I do take Last Jedi Luke with a bit of grace.
Yeah.
Because I think he's dealing with more stuff than Yoda had ever tried to deal with or had to deal with. So I'll say that.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good point.
I love it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Andrew, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus or anything. You know, I'm not telling Scott that you like Rogue One more than A New Hope. Like, I'm not trying to like bring that kind of stuff up. So.
It's true.
I would never say that. It was good.
It was.
But yeah, another thing I thought was interesting, which I'd still love to hear, Scott, some of your Disney stuff at the end, but there was a lot of debate going around with the Skeleton Crew about pirate. I don't know if you saw any of that stuff, but Lando, another example of him calling someone a pirate, and I just feel like people are just like, you can't have pirates in Star Wars. Like, I don't know. I feel like that was a whole thing, but that really stood out to me.
Did he call him pirate in Return? I thought that was an Empire.
I think he does both, but I know he does it in Return. He's like, get going, you pirate, you know?
Oh, yes. He's good. Yes.
But also, something I wrote down, which I thought was funny, is the Emperor's kind of nice when you first meet him. Like, you know he's evil.
Yeah.
Like, his laugh, especially. But, like, he's like, how are you, my friend? Like, he's like, you know, he calls Vader my friend. Like, I will, you know, it's like, his intentions, I think, become so evil when you know how callously he's like, yeah, kill Vader. Go ahead, Luke. You know, like, I don't know. But it's funny. If you just get this little snapshot of like what the Emperor's actually saying, he's like, don't worry, my friend. I've got you. We're here together. We're doing, like, I don't know. It's just such a funny, like, kind of intro to the Emperor, but he's so menacing looking and sounding. You're like, you know, this guy is evil. But yeah, if you just read the pages, he seems pretty chill.
Right. When you do have that,
he's just a chill guy.
Like, bosses Vader around, and that was kind of a cool thing to see because up until this point, you know, you saw him like kneel to the Emperor in Empire, right? When he was like doing the Skype call with him, but but as far as like actually having them interact in person, then, and he's like, no, go wait on the far side of the moon, like wait for my orders, and you're just like, oh yeah, like Vader's just taking crap from this old like raisin. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, classic old raisin. So yeah, then we got the forest moon. We've got the bike scene, which is like such an amazing thing. Like, I love how it was shot. There's just like a guy literally walking a camera through the woods, and they sped it up, and it looks amazing.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Yeah, he literally walked a steady cam through, and then just like, sped it up.
That's so cool. And I remember reading.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I remember going to the library and getting the like Star Wars illustrated guides from there, and the Endor Scout Trooper. There's like paragraphs about their equipment and their visor, and how their visor would like cast out a plan because they were moving so fast. Like Luke, maybe Leia, can be like, oh, force sensitive, they know what's coming up.
Yeah,
they've got quick reflexes. But the Scout Trooper goggles like lay out a path for them to take through the trees so they know which way they're gonna turn. And I just like ate that up as a kid. I'm like, that's so cool.
That's
the
sweet.
Biker Scouts were such a cool design. Like, I have one of the helmets, and I have like a number of the action figures with the bikes, like a Lego set with them. The bikes are they're killer. But like, can we not also acknowledge that just that trooper was just such a disembarkment from like the standard stormtrooper, and just how unique the design was and how cool that was to see them. So I definitely enjoyed. I loved having the Kenner action figures and the bike as a kid, and then now having the new versions of those. Such a cool design. Love all the gear. Love all the design. I think those were largely Macquarie designs, I believe.
Yeah.
But they looked fantastic, just how they executed them, and all the movie magic that you mentioned with the bike. And what kid didn't ride their BMX down a hill and just weave in and out pretending they were on a speeder bike?
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think it might be my favorite variant. It's probably, I don't know. I mean, the Snow Trooper is so cool too. Like,
yeah.
Like every time, I love how that was a part of Star Wars. Just like there's a new type of stormtrooper, you know, or like lore. And but yeah, it didn't feel like, especially with ships, we got new Rebel ships every time. Like I think the B wing was this one, right? And then the A wing was an Empire, I believe. But just like, I don't know, they just like the standard army, they were always adding to. And I feel like that's definitely something we lost like in the sequel trilogy. Like, man, the Battle of Exegol at the end, I was just like, I just don't, it's like, what are all these random ships? And I get that was their kind of their point, but it's just like, what am I rooting for? I'm like, oh, it's so cool to see all these X-Wings and these B-Wings. And then they're just like, I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird.
The thing about design, like that's what Macquarie was all about, is that what matters most, the silhouette. Because when you're watching that scene go by so quickly, it's like you have to be able to pick out who's good and who's bad. So even with the departure from the X-Wing, you have a very striking visual representation of what the Empire is with any TIE variant, right? And of course Death Stars or Star Destroyers with their triangular shapes. So you have these like distinct shapes, and you're right, Exegol was just this like free for all, and it didn't follow those Macquarie rules that made those space battles so compelling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Just like the visual brilliance of that. And like, even like Star Wars today is still pulling from like Macquarie's designs. They're like, oh, here's a new Stormtrooper variant, which was actually an old thing, which is like, I think is really cool. But at the same time, it's like, you guys aren't coming up with anything new either.
Right. Oh, yeah, you get Kathleen Kennedy with her. There's no source material. And it's like, okay, there's not only is there tons of books and novels and, graphic novels, things like that to pull from video games. Like you could pull storylines from anywhere.
Oh,
but then
man,
all the
I
design
wish
elements that they've stolen from Macquarie, like the new T-70 X-Wing is exactly the way Macquarie drew it. Like, come on now. Don't tell me those things.
I wish that they pulled more stuff from old Star Wars video games.
Yeah.
We just talked about that like 2 weeks ago, I think. Like, man, there's so much good design and also really good pacing for stories in a lot of those games. So Knights of the Old Republic.
We talked about it on the last Jedi talk because Andrew, I think you had played Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
Oh, so like Scott, are you familiar with the Rogue Squadron, like Rogue Leader?
Oh, absolutely, because that's where my name comes from. I just took the Rogue Leader, which was a sequel to Rogue Squadron, and slapped worship in the middle of that.
Amazing.
So,
Nice.
Perfect.
Love those games, yeah.
But we were talking about how like so many of those games affected us because you were like, a Y-Wing is a bomber.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but then you watch the movie's like, well, actually never says they're bombers, but like because of the games we know that. So the opening of The Last Jedi, which I still think looks really cool, but they have those bombers, and then like those of us who've played the game are like, no, that's supposed to be Y-Wings. Y-Wings are the bombers, the workhorse of the Rebel fleet. Come on.
Yeah,
obviously.
Oh man, I would just for so long I would just like walk up to the ships in that game and you just like hit X and it would just like the X-Wing, like the B-Wing designed by Admiral Akbar, and stuff like that. It was so cool. But I loved Rogue Leader, especially. I had it for the GameCube, and I remember the Battle of Endor because you had previously fought like one Star Destroyer, and then that was a part when like the fleet turns around and you have to fight the two Star Destroyers. And I was just like, I loved it so much. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Oh, it's amazing. So yeah, in the movie we've got the Battle of Endor, so we've got the fleet shows up. And the Rebel fleet, it just gets me hyped. Like, oh,
it's a great theme.
It's amazing.
Battle. Love those.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite motifs, I think. Well, I mean, besides Binary Sunset, absolute favorite of John Williams motifs. But those like the scene in A New Hope where they hop in the turbo lasers in the Millennium Falcon fighting off the TIE fighter for the first time. I can't remember what that's called, but then that Peter Griffin, when they're in the he hums it the whole time. That's everybody who's playing that part. Yeah, that's such a great. But then also, there's that same melody, that same motif that's played during the Battle of Endor. That's so freaking cool. And it's like those are when I'm playing, not so much anymore because my kids are older. But when we were playing Lego ships or like the Hasbro ships, I would like blast those soundtracks on my sound system, cool. And just like it just immerses you in that battle, and just everything is way more epic because of Johnny Williams.
Yeah,
Battle of Endor wouldn't have been. It would have. It's cool on its own visually, but like it's so much cooler because of John Williams.
Mm-hmm. And I love Oh yeah, 100%. I think John Williams makes these movies not like lame. Like, I don't know. I just feel like he gives so much heart to them. Yeah. And I think he's the best part of the sequels and prequels as well. Like, I'm a big prequelist. I love the prequels, but I just think, man, his music is always great. I love how Return of the Jedi does. It feels to me this is one of those movies that successfully has 3 storylines going that you are all equally invested in. You know, you've got the fleet battle, the Endor, kind of like skirmish, bunker war, and then just like the lightsaber duel. And I just, all 3 of them, I feel like I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Love the Battle of Helm's Deep, but I feel like my only gripe with that movie is when I'm watching the Battle of Helm's Deep and then they cut to Merry and Pippin in Fangorn Forest. It's a bit of like a, okay. Yeah, you know, it feels like a bit like, we have just said good morning. You know, it's like, I love both scenes, but the way they're cut together feels a little anticlimactic, I guess, or it kind of changes pacing, but I don't feel that way at all.
Return of the Jedi, fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, George Lucas was so known for that, just like the direction of faster, more intense, you know, and I just think, man, does that just like rule in this ending part.
Something for everyone. There was the drama of the confrontation with Luke and the Emperor. There was also lightsaber fights in that scene. There was the guerrilla warfare on the ground with the bunker scene. And then for someone like me who just loves space battles, you also had that. And it was all going on at the same exact time. Like, you can't get better than that. It's just, I love all 3 aspects of that, and they gave it to us. They paced it out perfectly. I loved every scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's cool because it all works together, because I think I've heard, you know, it's like you could almost see the side of like the Luke Vader confrontation doesn't affect the overall victory.
Right.
But it's also, they're fighting for someone's soul. But anyways, but they're all going on, and there's a reason why they're all needing to be taken out in this way, I guess. You know, like the shield has to go down so the ships can win. And then if Luke wasn't there, like Vader would have jumped in a ship, and, you know, the Emperor's like full attention, you know, like all this stuff kind of thing, you know. But yeah, I just think
that it reminds me of like a really great comic run. If you've ever subscribed and run through a comic as it releases, and they have 2 or 3 different lines going, you crack that issue open and you're like, where are we? And Return of the Jedi it's like a pleasure every time. It's so good. You're like, oh, we're back with Lando. We're back with Han and Leia. Like, let's see what happens. And you're absolutely right. They do affect each other, but I think that what's happening in the back and forth between like Lando and the fleet and Han and Leia at the bunker, those two depending on each other and their ultimate success adds suspense to Luke in the throne room with Vader and the Emperor. Like, it's indirect, but it's like, okay, that's why they're here. That's why I'm here. Yes,
there you
go.
I just saw mullet at Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
You got to throw the meme.
Jedi Master. Yeah. It's just a good reminder. Like, Luke isn't there just to walk around and like lollygag with his dad and meet his dad's boss.
Bring your kid.
There's a purpose. There's an intention. Yeah, and he's got a timer. Basically, he can't hang out forever. If his friends do what they're gonna try and do, if they succeed, then he's got to go. You know. So I think that the duel, we need to help each other to win, adds a lot of anticipation to Luke's like, all right, I'm here for my dad, basically.
So, and stakes were high in all 3 scenarios. Like we have the battle, like not just for Luke's soul, you know, as far as like the temptation that the Emperor was like putting him through, like, strike me down, do it, like, do it, you know, strike me down, become powerful, like I will complete your training. And he was legitimately tempting him. The stakes were high for, you know, what way Luke was going to go. The stakes were high for, I mean, Leia gets shot at the bunker, like, you know, and love that little, you know, I love you, I know reversal.
And then, Leia shooting the trooper behind Han. Very, very cool. I love it. It's like poetry. It rhymes. Like, so to see that that effect there. But they could have died. And they came face to face with an ATST that thankfully Chewie was in. But, the stakes were definitely high. Someone could have lost their life at that point. And then with the it's a trap. We got the battle going on in the ships and the Star Destroyers coming in. The shields are up. They have to evasive maneuvers. And then, how are we going to take on these Star Destroyers at point blank range? It will last longer than we will against that Death Star, So, and we might take a few of them with us. It was kamikaze style, like, stakes are high. Lando could have died. Like, he totally could have died, and that would have fit the story really, really well. And so for the stakes to be that high in 3 completely separate acts that were all smushed together, it was a lot of adrenaline at the penultimate part of this movie. Fantastic filmmaking.
I never thought about that, but I know a lot of different shows and movies nowadays get like blame for, like, they have plot armor. It's like they're not going to die, they're the main character. And you're right. Like, I think one of the reasons why characters don't have plot armor in a movie like this is because it would have fit if they died. Like, we don't know the outcome. And I think that makes it more satisfying, as well as, like, we didn't know what could happen. Also with Leia, the whole reversal, I think that's also such another great example of her being that, like, proactive person. Is she's like, I'm hurt. Oh, somebody snuck up behind Han. Immediately hides a gun. Like, that's not the diplomat we see later on. Like, I always get the vibe that Princess Leia, that was her character. Like, that's the Andor guy. He dresses
Cassian.
up. Luthen.
Yes.
Oh, Luthen. Okay.
Like, when he does his character, and it's like he has his little like, that's the character, like, he is who we meet first, and I think Leia, like, the princess is her, like, that's her persona, the rebel is who she really is,
Yeah. And can I just say, Heath, you were a worship leader as well, and maybe you'll understand this.
Yeah.
But there's an element to people that work at churches that we have to flip a switch Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Not that we're performing, but, like, people have a certain expectation, what you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to act like, what you're supposed to say. And it's exhausting sometimes. So I definitely, there's a reason I'm a rogue worship leader. There's a reason for that. It's a dual meaning. It's not just the video game and slap the word worship in there. I also have a lot of hot takes in that realm and kind of laugh at worship leaders for us being the way that we are.
Yeah.
But there is this element of this thing that we put on every Sunday morning. And so I do identify, and a lot of pastors, a lot of people that work at churches probably identify with that and can relate to that. And so people like Luthen and people like Leia, I can really, like, identify with, because it's like they put on this thing because they're supposed to be a certain way, but at their core, they're strong. They are courageous. They are not that. I'm not trying to say that worship leaders aren't, but we're just real people. We are people that just, like, want to go and love people and go have a beer and, like, talk about movies and nerd out, but we're expected to act a certain way or be a certain way. And it's just, it's exhausting. So when Luthen, like, puts on his garb and he starts, like, laughing, like, in Andor season 1, I'm just like, oh man, that is, like, he's practicing, he's getting ready, he's pumping himself up to flip that switch. And it's like, dance, monkey, dance, you got to perform. And so I think Leia, to bring it back to Return, like, Princess Leia, that's probably, she probably went and put on the garb and did the diplomatic thing, but she'd rather be on the ground bleeding with the person she loves, shooting Imperial in the face, So.
Can you imagine, like, a deleted scene of Leia about to round the corner, like, with her Imperial guards confronting Vader in the beginning of the movie, and she's like, okay, here we go. Turns the corner. He's like, where are the plans? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're a diplomatic mission. Like,
yeah. I never thought about it because I don't like how it was the end result in Kenobi with Kid Leia and just, like, the Mickey Mouse running around, like running away from Flea, Andrew. Just so you know, that's your Red Hot Chili Peppers boy. Wait, was that on pop?
That before we hit record.
Oh, that was. So we made a joke that Andrew looks like a bass player, and so he should be Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But yeah, so the bald guy, the bounty hunter in Kenobi, is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Why?
It's a nose, no nose goes.
Yeah, and wouldn't you want to be in Star Wars? Like, if you were...
I would.
Why not?
If someone asked me, I would say yeah.
Flea, I thought we talked about this before, Andrew, but Flea has a ton of cameos. He's in Back to the Future.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, he's in what I just quote, Baby Driver. He's no-nos in Baby Driver. Like, he's just like a bunch of random. It's like, it's weird because it's, to me, like, I don't think he's a bad actor, but every time he shows up, it's like, hey, it's Flea.
He's like the same guy in every single thing he's in. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like how, like I said, I don't love the scene in Kenobi, but I think it's trying to show that Leia is the kid who just wants to play outside. She wants to go climb trees, and I think that's what they're trying to show. I don't think it works as well in the show personally, but I do appreciate that that's what they were trying to show of her, even more than the sequel trilogy. You know, like, yeah, it was just, I changed my hair. Like, I just feel like that's just Carrie Fisher. Like, that's not Leia anymore.
Yeah, I know. For sure.
Yeah.
I have a poster, by the way, of Return of the Jedi. I have all three over here on my wall. And it's one of the other nostalgic things about Return of the Jedi, since we're on the subject of Leia. Like, what kid did not have a crush on Leia, especially Return of the Jedi Leia? And I'm just going to say it, like, the bikini, okay, that might have been part of it. But
I enjoy this. I don't know why.
But I think as a kid coming of age, like, you see that poster, you see Leia, and like, not just, you know, the Jabba's palace scene, but yeah, I mean, seeing badass Leia like mow down a stormtrooper to save Han. I mean, that's so cool. That is definitely like an attractive, not just physically attractive, but like personality wise attractive, that you're just like, she did it from the moment she was like, you know, in the garbage chute, Flyboys. Like, she commands the screen every scene she's in, and that is something I miss in the sequel trilogy, not having.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
and I feel like she is such a force in these movies, but I don't. It's weird because I don't even know how to say this, but I feel like we don't see that from a lot of female actors, especially in the action movie world. Like, they become almost like parodies of something.
Yeah. It's a trope. It turns into, can turn into a trope. Not always, but
it's just like I don't know. I don't want to get too much into identity politics, but I think sometimes we have.
No, but I mean, look at Leia. Wasn't the main character's love interest. I think that was another thing that was so different at the time, where she didn't exist to just there was romance in it, but it was such a different romance story. It wasn't, you know, the hero gets the girl at the end. And I think that was a great departure of allowing her character to be so badass and be so cool, but it wasn't for the purpose of hooking up with the main character later.
Right. Yeah. I guess what I will say is that I think it's done well here. That's like what I want from any type of lead, but just like, great ensemble, great people, which I love this point too, that like, when you have like an ensemble, like three especially, I love the three movies that, like, we got them in the first one, we got them a little bit in the second one, then they split off, and then to have their own kind of things, brought them back in the first part of the third one, split them up for the final thing, and then, like, so few movies do that right. Like, I think the sequel trilogy, Rey, Finn, and Poe should have been together a majority of the time. Like, that's your three. Like, those are like the people we wanted to root for. That's people that clicked, and then they were so rare together. Yeah. So I just think it was a waste. I don't have any more notes except for Vader, Luke, and Emperor Boy. So do you guys have anything you want to say about Bunker or Fleet, Akbar? Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I love that. I love that. So Leia said it first in Empire. She screams at Luke, "It's a trap! It's a trap!"
Yeah,
so it's like, you know,
he was quoting Leia.
He was quoting Leia. It's not Akbar's thing, but
But no, I just thought it was cool that you have a Mon Calamari kind of leading this whole like ragtag group of rebels. I do love, so I'm a big ship guy, so I have to talk about the battle over Endor because I love the B-Wing, the A-Wing. We get like all these. Oh no, the A-Wing was introduced in Empire, I believe. But no, that was the kamikaze scene. The A-Wing comes flying at the bridge and takes down the Executor, right?
Yeah.
That was super, super cool to see. But yeah, you got all these new ship reveals. Again, it was just such a great design that there were still uniquely rebel ships, and you could tell against the stark bluish gray silhouette of the TIE fighter. We already talked about that. But yeah, I loved seeing all the different things happening. I loved seeing the interior of the Death Star. Like, that was really cool. And I have talk about Super Return of the Jedi, the video game for NES, Super NES. That final level where you're in the Millennium Falcon and you just blew up the core and you're flying out of like the red steel, against the gray of the Star Destroyer, and you're trying to outrun the fire. And there's a part in the game where the fire just kind of overtakes like the vignette of the screen. And if you're too slow, it eats you up alive and you die. And just like, that was such a hard level to complete. And it literally, I probably need to talk to my therapist about this later, because I have like legit childhood trauma from this level. And every time I see that scene in Return of the Jedi, when you're watching the movie, and Lando and Nine Numb make it out and they're celebrating, and you're like, yes, that's exactly how I felt when I finally beat that level,
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
So really cool to see a different, we blew up the Death Star again. I get that, whatever, but you got to see it in a different way. Not a trench run per se, similar to it, but you got to see some new parts of the Death Star, so I thought that was cool. New ships, new Death Star, new scenes, new Star Destroyers. I thought it was all cool. It was such an epic, over the top in a good way.
Yeah.
Final space battle that I really.
It's another step.
enjoyed.
Like, it's a step up.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, they amped it up for sure.
I love Home One too. I think it's such a cool, like, those Mon Calamari cruisers are just so cool. I love them.
Love it.
All right, Andrew, anything, or are we moving right to the duel?
Man, duel it up.
The real duel of the fates, if you will. I mean, like I said, I feel like the Luke Vader confrontation at the end is a movie of itself. Like, it looks so cool. I mean, the whole scene where Luke, half his face is a different color, and you're like, what's he gonna do? And what kind of stands out?
Like, do you think that they caught things like that? Like, Luke has a shadow on half of his face. Is that foreshadowing that he's like struggling with the dark versus the light? Like, I don't know that people were thinking psychologically that way back in the 80s. I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I hope so.
Right?
Well, it's weird because I think this, I mean, they always talk about how like Jaws was like the first like blockbuster, but like this movie was in theaters for so long, especially compared to now, that like there was people who saw it so many times that they could start digging into that. But that really wasn't a thing before this. So I don't think they would have been like, this movie's going to be taken frame by frame. Like, how would you assume that, I don't know. I think that's a really good question.
I do know there was commentary, like we had talked about a little bit earlier, on like Luke's outfit and it being black, and then kind of the reveal of the white at the end. I think that was an active discussion. Again, so they didn't have message boards or social media or things like that back then, but I do remember reading some articles that like those were things that people were talking about, as far as amongst their friends and things like that, or writing into newspapers. That was a thing back then. What do you think is going to happen to Luke? And, no spoilers and things like that. So I think maybe there was elements of that, but we look back on that now and going like, whoa, how innovative was that? Because Star Wars as a whole, like not just the original movie, but the trilogy as a whole, so ahead of its time, not just in visual effects, because I think that's the first thing that we think of when someone says Star Wars was ahead of its time. But I think even too, it pulled from storytelling elements from its time, and because George Lucas was a student of film, and I think he used those things, and he was like really good friends with Steven Spielberg, and so they added these dramatic elements like lighting that told a story, like camera angles that told a story, and he was a visual storyteller. And so, but this was in a
sci-fi movie. It wasn't supposed to be like that innovative, but it was. You know?
Yeah,
just appreciate it.
Yeah, when you're talking, even just like the colors of the lightsabers, the colors of the lasers, of who is shooting at who, just visually. And someday I would like, if I just had ample time, I'd love to edit like the Revenge of the Sith with like no dialogue, like just music and sound, because I think you could tell the whole story just with that, just like those elements. And it's so cool because that's how it's told. It's told visually, and we love movies. And we want to see movies that use their space. Like, oh, this could have been an audiobook and it would have been the same thing. It's like, that's not quite fun enough. It's just like, use these cool scenes. And I mean, I think my favorite quote is from this part is, "You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi like my father before me." The throwing of the lightsaber, because it's, I will not do this out of anger. And man, Luke sees that his father's hand was also removed at one point. He's like, I am going down the same path, which kind of goes to that Yoda thing, where if he's like, Yoda was like, you were right. I think that if Luke believed he was right 100%, that's probably the first one of the times he was like, maybe this is the path,
Man, yeah. Do you think Yoda would have counseled Luke he had to kill Vader?
Well, he says he must confront him, right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure that Yoda would have taken the Luke avenue, because it seems like Luke gets to the like search your feelings way of the Jedi on his own, and then like we talked about, Yoda's like, nah, I don't have anything to teach you anymore. I maybe in that moment Yoda's like, yeah, if anyone's gonna like confront and take down Vader and the Empire, it's gonna be him, because of like how he goes about all of this. Because I don't know if Yoda would have said like, hey, there's good in your father still,
Yeah.
It's hard too, because now that we have the prequels, and Yoda was very much like, you take Anakin, I'll take the Emperor. Like, they're like, we gotta kill these guys,
We'll kill them. Like Ahsoka, who's like, switch your blaster to stun when Order 66 happens, and Yoda's just throwing his lightsaber into the neck of clone troopers. It's like, just chopping them down.
I really do. I feel like I always defend it because I've been defending it. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
I've been always defending the prequels because I love them. But what I don't love is how it changed my perception of the Jedi and Yoda. Because when I watched Return of the Jedi, when I watched the original trilogy, I assumed Yoda has always lived on this planet. And he's a Jedi master, and he's the Jedi you go see. It's like, hey, we're training you to be a Jedi. Oh, you need some special training? Go see this guy. He's been there for 900 years, and he's like, I just don't like how they ended Return of the Jedi with like, oh, I was the leader of the Jedi. I failed. That's it. I'm going into exile. Like, it just doesn't seem quite, I don't know. I feel like George Lucas just really wanted to do whatever he wanted to do, which is great. It's his stuff. And then he was like, oh, shoot, how do I get him to, there? Yeah, it's like, and then he falls and then he has to go. It's poetry.
Just crawl through the wires.
Yeah. So weird.
Yeah, it's odd.
It's a weird
shot. Heath, I'm going to disagree because I really like the
I like that
Jedi as a large institution being borderline corrupt.
No, I'm not saying that. I don't like. It doesn't seem like Yoda's really leading the council. I mean, he was. I don't know. I wish they would have pushed into that more, honestly. I wish they would have been.
Yeah, you're talking Yoda specifically, not just the whole Jedi. No, I see.
I wish Mace Windu had led the council, and I wish he was like, we need to stage a coup to take out the government, because it's kind of what they're doing.
Say what you mean, Mace. Yeah, because that's what you're doing. Yeah, absolutely. I saw an edit of. I know. I'm sorry. I saw an edit of Revenge of the Sith, which just changes some things around and cuts some dialogue. To all you get is Anakin's perspective of Mace Windu going in. So it's like every time the Council or Obi-Wan, Mace, Yoda talk negatively about the established political structure, is you get that, and then you get Mace Windu being like, stay here, we're going to go take care of this. And then you stumble upon him going to kill the leader of the free world, the universe, leader of the free universe. And you're like,
Yeah.
Jeez, that is wild.
Yeah. But anyway, Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi.
An excellent duel, an amazing duel. I don't fully grasp people who can't see the deep emotional storytelling that's happening just because it's old, just because it's an old movie, right? There's people will have their opinions about any era of Star Wars, and that's totally cool. I've got some weird ones, obviously, but a person's inability to get around the technology of the day just seems so silly to me. Like, man, they did the best with the tools they had. Like, measurably, they were doing the best with the visual tools they had. And they went so deep into character development and just emotional storytelling with that duel. It was true.
I absolutely agree, because like you have one of the most epic moments in cinematic history with the Empire duel, right? And at the end of Empire, like, you have the big reveal of Darth Vader as the father, like, and then you can hindsight's 2020. You can look back and go like, oh my gosh, that fight was really so emotional between father and son, but it really wasn't, because Luke had none of that context, and Vader did. But like, there's no way to convey emotion with a masked character. So like, a lot of the emotional storytelling that they could do then after Luke found out about that, and then also now it's revealed that Leia is his sister, and like, and that was revealed in Dagobah, but then when Vader's like the one that finds out because Luke slipped up, and then you see his like eyes close, and it was like, oh crap. And then, a sister, perhaps, we can turn her too. And like, then he goes, no. And just like the emotion in that, like, so much that you could do with now a character that you do have who has that revelation of the father, the familial connections. And now you can do those emotional things with a character that has a face instead of just Vader, right? But then in Vader's body language in the fight, like, Andrew, you're like dead on. Like, it was just so emotional. And that's why the final duel scene in Return is even better. Yes, okay, peak cinema, no, I am your father in Empire. Absolutely. That takes it for like a peak cinema moment. But as far as if you just look at the duels, Return is a better duel than Empire.
Yeah. I started laughing because I thought about pecan again.
Pecan.
Pecan.
Oh, I love those. I love someone called that the funeral laugh. Like when you start smiling at something that's not like just something you remembered and you're not supposed to be laughing. I love that term. Pecan. Yeah, I think it's cool that each of the original movies, the lightsaber fight got better and better, just visually what they could do. They were kind of understanding it more. And I love, there's two conflicting arguments too, because I hear people say the reason the Return of the Jedi or Empire are better than the prequels is because the lightsaber fight is never just about the lightsaber fight, And I agree with that, but people always say that's why the Duel of the Fates was just people swinging swords, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that, because I'm like, it's called the Duel of the Fates. It's the ancient Sith and the Jedi, these ancient enemies, fighting again for the first time, and they're fighting over Anakin, really. I mean, who's going to train Anakin? So I just needed to get that off my chest. But this lightsaber fight, there's so much going on. And I think sometimes even in like The Force Awakens, there's moments of it's just these two people showing up to fight. And it's like, what are they fighting for? I think Attack of the Clones is kind of like that as well. Just like the Dooku. Oh, it's let's fight, which I still enjoyed those. But I think when it's fighting over Luke's soul, fighting over Vader's soul, fighting over who's going to train the Chosen One. You know, I think those are always going to be the more interesting fights, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And then like you have this moment in Return of the Jedi where the passion overwhelms Luke and he goes ham on Vader, right? And he starts hacking away at him, and you see that raw power that like a fully fledged, you know, peak power Jedi Luke could exhibit. He could have defeated Vader just like he could have killed him on the spot. And just the fact that he misses, and you know, as Vader's falling and he hits his arm, and that reveal of the robotic hand, that we didn't know how Anakin lost his hand. We didn't know that he, Obi-Wan said he's more machine now than man, but we didn't know what that actually meant.
Right.
It was literally like, here's wires hanging from this guy's, you know, forearm. And so for Luke to like see that, to be at a moment of like rage, to be stopped in that moment, and then to decide to throw away his lightsaber and say, nope, you haven't won.
Yeah.
Just so powerful, because it's not just pacifism. Like a lot of people look at that throwing of the lightsaber and they're like, they justify the character decisions in The Last Jedi because they're like, yeah, Luke was always a pacifist. And it's like, no, he wasn't, like, truly, because a true pacifist would never want to fight in the first place. He would try to find every way around fighting. But like Luke gave into his passion, which was the downfall of Anakin Skywalker. His passion and his fear of loss. That's exactly what Luke had to deal with in losing his sister, in this newfound revelation, and losing to this dark force. And for him to be overcome with that passion and go after Vader the way he did, but then be able to stop himself, that's not pacifism, that's self-control. And so his throwing in the lightsaber was a conscious choice. It wasn't a refusal to fight. It was saying that I'm stronger than this. I'm stronger than the passion that has overtaken me just now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's amazing to see the revelation of like the depth of Vader's mechanic life, like the mechanisms that keep Vader alive. Luke seeing that for the first time genuinely reminds him of his humanity. So what's revealed is fake. What's revealed is all of the things that Vader has been slapped together with in order to live. And that reminds Luke of his dad. And maybe even a little bit of himself. He sees himself, right? And I get goosebumps just now. Like the things that are like false or fake about a person maybe remind us of the humanity, and maybe we have more grace. Maybe we're pulled out of that passion. And it's just amazing.
There's that moment in Empire where he defeats Vader in the cave, right? And lops the head off, and then the face mask explodes, revealing his own face there. And it would be cool to see that like edited into the Return of the Jedi, where he like sees the hand, and then like he looks at his own hand and he sees himself in Vader, and thinks back to that moment in the cave on Dagobah, and goes, "Oh man, this is just like that. Like I see me in this guy laying on the ground. Like this is my own flesh and blood."
It's just so easy to make Vader the villain. Yeah, he looks cool, whatever, but he doesn't emote. He doesn't talk normally. He doesn't breathe normally. He barely moves normally. And so to pull humanity out of Vader in that moment is astounding. That's like a miracle in its own right. To like, you cut away the facade and you reveal mechanism, and it's still like, no, that's him in there, and that's why I'm here.
So they did
so
that
cool.
through Luke. They were able to do that.
Yes,
reactions to it. But then, like to your point, Heath, like to add the no in the special edition gives you a chance to like experience the emotional side of Vader that we never got to see before. So we had only ever seen it through like his interactions with Luke, but now we're getting to see him himself emote, which is very, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't mind the addition because I think that's what he's saying anyways. You know, I think it's just jarring for some people. But I also love this whole moment we're talking about as well, because the music going on is the kind of male choir that's more it's more major than it's been, because the Emperor's theme is so like minor, ooh, and then like the ooh, you know, it's like you just get the vibe that's like there is like the Force is watching, like the cosmos are watching this confrontation, because like this is everything. This moment, you know, he could strike down Vader and turn to the dark side. He ultimately throws his lightsaber away, you know, chooses the light. And I love the Emperor's face, because that's the first time I feel like we've seen the Emperor not in control. It's like, well, then you'll die. Like, he's like, you did not do what I wanted you to do. You know, you are a Jedi, a true Jedi. And then he's like, well, then I'm going to kill you. You know, and
Instead, he goes, have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? And Vader's like, hey, that's my story.
It's not the story that Jedi would tell you. Which, of course, he did.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's such a cool way to end the movie. Just like the Vader. I mean, who would have thought, I mean, the most iconic villain of all time is humanized, and then, like, he's redeemed, and it's just like that whole arc is crazy. And I think everything in Star Wars that they've done since, they can't top, and they don't know what to do with that, you know, because like people are like, well, you can't redeem Kylo Ren, he killed Han Solo. That was a big argument we heard, right? Or Anakin. It's like, well, we can show how Anakin turned bad, but like that whole idea of bad to good is such a contrary belief. I feel like in culture right now too, you demonize people who are against you. They're evil. There's no good, you know, there's no turning back. People don't change, you know. It's like there's such a, I don't know, like, you know, we talked about, you know, previous worship leaders and stuff, for like, we're believers, and it's like that's the message of the gospel is in Star Wars, just like, yeah, everyone can be redeemed, you know. And it's such a cool belief system.
Far gone, right?
Yeah,
that's what
what
they're saying at the end of the prequels. Like, there's still good in him, and we didn't get any of that in like the, you know, or Luke believed that, you know, in the original trilogy, and it's like, okay, he believed that so strongly that he went to literally the throne room, you know, of the Emperor, and this scary place, this place where it was evil, minor music playing, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And so, and he saw it through to completion. It was very cool to see that. And that's not an arc. I think we've seen it in like, maybe not in so much in storytelling prior to this movie, you know, on the silver screen, but the redemption arc, you know, we have seen that story being told before.
Yeah.
So there is that freshness that I think Return of the Jedi gave in, and it was it was such a contrast too. That's what worked really well with art. It's like contrast works really, really well. You had the bad guys winning an empire. You had this huge cliffhanger, and then the ultimate payoff of not just the good guys winning, but also the big bad Vader being the one to do it. It wasn't Luke. Like, it would have been totally satisfying to see Luke be the one to take down the Emperor, but it was a redeemed Vader that did it, which was just so compelling. I just love that so much.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny. We went this entire time without mentioning Ewoks once, and
that's true.
Like,
yeah, that's true. Wow. I thought of it, and I almost brought him up.
Yeah,
yeah. I do you want to, Scott? Do you want to know when I almost brought it up? You guys were talking about like, oh, obviously we all had a crush on Princess Leia when we were kids, and you were like, you know, maybe the bikini influenced that a bit, and I was like, honestly, sure, but also long hair Princess Leia in Ewok Village, that was top notch for 10-year-old Andrew. I was like, a woman, a real woman,
a regal. That's that's Sherwood Forest Leia. That's what I like to call her.
Yeah. Never mind the fact that the Ewoks had a dress for a fully grown woman. Kind of disturbing, but
yeah. She also put hair extensions in, so
but these are my friends. The Ewoks never bothered me. I think that's something I had only heard when I grew, because I'm like, I don't know, they just never bothered me. Did they bother either of you guys? Or I just feel like it's Star Wars.
Yep.
There's a bunch of, there's crazy tall things, gross things, adorable things. Like, that's just Star Wars, you know? And yeah, I don't know. I don't like the, like, Ewoks overthrew the Empire. Like, not really. I mean, they helped, but just like, I don't know.
Yeah, not that.
I appreciated that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say I appreciated that they didn't speak basic.
Yeah.
That they were just like yep, or whatever. So continue. That was it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. No, I think the Ewoks are on the borderline, maybe for adults, of like, you know, the throwing away the suspension of disbelief, right? Because you need that. And so once you start as an adult looking at the physics of it, like how did they take 2 logs and smash the head of an ATST, which is supposed to be an armored, you know, thing? You see the MythBusters episode where they like tried to like prove that could be done. And
that sounds so cool.
Okay. So if you really want to nerd out on something, go back and watch. There's a special Star Wars edition of MythBusters, and one of the myths that they bust is can 2 logs with a fulcrum, can it like smash an armored vehicle? And I think they took like a bank, like an armored car that they, you know, or armored van or something like that, and they raised it up and they smashed it with 2 logs and it did destroy it. So it's like, you know, so you're talking about like them, the Ewoks trying to trip an ATST or like smash the head with logs, like. But when you're a kid, you're just like, you don't care. There's explosions, there's like chaos, and it's very easy. And again, at the end of the day, George Lucas made this, the core demographic was 10 to 12-year-old boys.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what we were at the time. And so we loved it. We ate it up. I have no problem with the Ewoks.
I was gonna say,
well
mic
said.
Drop. That's all you need. Yeah, I think the same thing for the prequels is I loved every prequel that I saw when I saw it, you know, and I think there's some that's like I see some criticism, but I don't know, and it's hard when you go into like the sequel trilogy stuff and you're like, there's stuff I just don't like, but it's like, am I too old now? You know, have I grown? Am I Susan in the Chronicles of Narnia and I have progressed too far?
Yes. It helps being a parent because when you get to experience like the sequel trilogy, I do, like, it's my least favorite trilogy, but usually when it comes up on my Instagram page, and usually people not my age, but like, you know, in their 30s or something like that, they're like crapping on the sequels. And they're like, what do you think of the sequels? And I'm like, well, they weren't great, but like I also have kids. And so that does skew my, you know, because like I think we were trying to figure out what Leia's droid was, right? But then there was that cute little one-wheeled droid with the cone head, D-O.
Yeah.
That was like completely useless to the story and was just dumb all around, you know, but it like stuttered and stuff like that. Like it was cute, but then like I didn't appreciate it. But when my kids were like wanting the toy and the remote control version of it, I was like, okay, I get it. Like I'm not the core demographic anymore for those types of things. I can still appreciate the lightsaber fights and the cinematography and the special effects, but like those things that used to capture my attention as a kid no longer do. So, and that's okay.
Yeah.
They got to sell merchandise at some point. They got to make a profit somehow.
It's true.
So.
Star Wars has always been a merchandise heavy series. Like,
exactly.
It's nothing new. Day one. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap up. I'd love to still ask some Star Wars or some Disney Star Wars questions, Scott, if you have some time. But yeah, let's wrap up on Return of the Jedi. Any kind of final thoughts? Any closing statements? For me, I like this movie, and I think you should go watch it.
Oh, you do?
I'm a fan. I am a fan. No, I love Return of the Jedi. I love the kind of 2-section storytelling, the arcs. I think it's just really satisfying. I love the triumphant end. This movie is really great. I think if I was to make one criticism, I think the music doesn't stand out to me as much because I don't see any. Besides the Emperor's theme, I can't really name one new song.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I love that one, but like, man, I'm always brought back to like the undercut of like the Battle of Hoth music is just so beautiful. So like, there's some other stuff that's like. Each movie has so much good music in it, but I think Return of the Jedi might fall a little short. But
yeah, I think the one thing that we didn't touch on that I think was impactful for me is the Rancor cave scene.
Oh yeah,
you know, we talked about like Luke falling into the pit, but then that whole battle with him,
oh, we did touch on the bone, you know, kind of like fighting with the bone and, you know, throwing the skull at the ultimately defeating the Rancor with the gate was clever, you know, and kind of scrappy and resourceful on Luke's end. But you also had just him, like the sheer fear in Luke at that moment, which we had just been introduced to this, like, you know, crazy, like powerful, like he can force choke things now. He's like kind of regal, and now it's like Luke Jedi Knight, you know, like, you know, delusions of I'm gone and there's delusions of grandeur type of thing. Yeah. And it's we're introduced to this powerful Luke, and then to see this sheer fear in him during this epic battle with this huge monster, which has been a hallmark in Star Wars movies with, like, you know, the oh gosh, why am I forgetting, like the Yeti type creature in Empire? Jeez.
Oh, the Wampa?
The Wampa, yeah. So the Wampa, you got the bigger creatures.
Wampa?
Yeah. So like these things happen, these things come up, and they're hallmarks of just other little hallmarks of Star Wars. And so the Rancor is a huge part of that with the creature side of things. But that whole, like the way they filmed it with the stop motion, with the practical effects, like you have to give a nod to the effects department and the practicality of that scene with the miniatures and with the claymation. It was just, yeah, so good.
Yeah. Andrew?
Totally.
Rancor.
I think my last thought, I love this movie. It is ranked for me. I'm looking at I have a rank. Number 6 out of every Star Wars project. I have 22 Star Wars projects that I've witnessed.
Wait, so like this is your 6th favorite?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What's above this?
Yeah, not just movies. It's everything Star Wars that I've watched.
Well, now I got to hear your 1 to 5, because what's better than Jedi? Are you putting Empire and Rogue One above Jedi? Is that what's going on?
So Heath, let me say it.
Hey, Scott, do you want to be a co-host on a cool movie podcast? I might be looking for a replacement.
Yeah, okay.
I think I can just exit just Andrew here. Let me see.
Number 6 is Return of the Jedi. Number 5 is A New Hope. Number 4 is Rogue One. Number 3 is Revenge of the Sith. Number 2 is Empire Strikes Back. And number 1 is Andor. That's my favorite thing ever.
Wow.
Dude, how hype are you for season 2? It looks so
good. You dude. I could scream, but my child is sleeping. I'm so pumped.
I'm like, the next like 3 months of my life are going to be epic, because we have, sorry to take this derail us from Star Wars.
No, you're good.
Tonight, Daredevil, you know,
yes.
Time of filming, Daredevil's coming out.
Yep.
Freaking love it. And then at the end of Daredevil, literally Daredevil will end and Andor season 2 will begin. And my life is going to be just amazing for the next few months.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we are super hyped about Daredevil. Did an episode about it, and yeah, it's when we're recording this, it's night of, so the first episode has aired just now. So I'm might be sneaking to watch it.
Gotta go.
Yeah, gotta go, guys. See ya.
Yeah, so yeah.
That's interesting. So, Andrew, what is your movie ranks? Take shows out. So what is
movie ranks? I mean, it wouldn't change it much.
Yeah, Andor was the only one.
So yeah, my favorite movie, Star Wars movie, would be Empire Strikes Back.
And then Revenge of the Sith is over
Empire. Yeah. Empire, Revenge, Rogue One, A New Hope, Return of the Jedi. So if you remove TV shows, Return of the Jedi is number 5, top 5.
So like you can edit this part out of the podcast if you want, but where are you guys located? Where, like, around
Michigan.
Michigan. Okay. Yeah. So you guys have the re-release of the 20th anniversary of Revenge coming back to theaters in your area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm like,
it's sick.
Gonna put together a crew. I was like, if you guys were anywhere near me, I'd be like, let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Where are you at?
I'm in southeastern PA. So
okay.
I'm about an hour outside of Philly.
Oh, nice.
Got it. Whoa.
Well, have a Yingling
not have,
and get it done.
They're right up there. They're like 40 minutes up the road from me. So I get to visit the actual brewery.
I've been there.
It's all about it. Anytime we cross the state border,
Yingling,
the Mecca. Yeah.
I want Yingling. Here's my big brand on Yingling. I just want it to be America's default beer. Like when I say give me a beer,
A beer. That's what it is.
it's
Yeah.
you know,
I
it's like
100% agree with that. We're best friends.
good,
Love it.
awesome. All right, Andrew,
Man.
see you later.
My last show, man. It's I'm pulling it out for the last episode.
Oh,
May thy
that not-
blade, may thy lightsaber chip and shatter.
I'll give you my Luke one.
Oh, sick,
oh,
dude!
it's amazing.
Thank you, sir. Wow. Blade in, ready to go. Wow.
Yeah, you gotta be ready to fight, man. I got that thing on me.
That's beautiful.
Got to keep that thing on me.
This is the natural end for this podcast, but I'd still love, Scott, if you could just tell us what your thoughts are, just real quickly on Disney Star Wars. Just like maybe likes, dislikes, or just something quick. But I'd love to wrap up with
real
that.
quick. I'll kind of sum it up with Disney absolutely missed the mark with this sequel trilogy 100%. We talked a little bit about it with like the mistreatment of the original 3, right? But then also, like, I'm a really big fan of the EU. And so I didn't want to see Kylo Ren. I didn't want to see Ben Solo. I wanted to see Jason and Jaina Solo. I want to see Mara Jade. Like, there was speculation after The Force Awakens, like, was Luke standing in front of Mara Jade's, gravestone type of thing. And it's like, so that I wish we would have gotten more EU, content.
Canonization.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit of it in the Mandoverse with Thrawn, albeit it's not the original 3 going up against Thrawn. It's Ahsoka. So, with the Rebels connection, I can see why they did that, but I'm not the biggest fan. I do like the Mandoverse. Love everything The Mandalorian that they've done so far with it. I really hope they pay off the whole Grogu Baby Yoda thing well with this final movie. And then lastly, I'm going to get heat for this, but like I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett. It was okay. Patterson cut of Book of Boba Fett.
Yes.
Or Mike Patterson, he puts that into a movie.
Yeah.
Magically, and like takes out some of the cringier stuff. 100% makes the book
Like a bantha.
way better, like a bantha. Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm a giant Boba Fett fan, so I'm just glad that they canonically brought him back from the Sarlacc pit. So that's Disney. Thank you for doing that. Wish it, I think in other EU stories that he did come back from the Sarlacc pit, it was always going to be that way. But also got to give a nod to Disney for legit giving Patton Oswalt's portrayal of the sequel trilogy in Parks and Recreation, actually making that canon. With
How hilarious.
The gauntleted hand of Boba Fett.
Absolutely.
Burst from the
Thank you,
sand.
Disney, for doing that. That's like the only thing that Kathleen Kennedy did right. So
That's amazing. I noticed you didn't mention the Acolyte.
Oh no, Acolyte was a miss for me.
Good.
Miss me with that.
That's the
crap.
correct
Although I
answer.
did like seeing a Wookiee Jedi. That was pretty cool.
Wish she had done anything, Andrew. Just
Did you say wish she had done anything?
I said he. Is it a she?
Oh, okay. No, it's a boy.
It was a boy.
I liked the Acolyte.
You did.
I did. I know. Big bummer, right?
You did it.
You did it.
I liked parts of it. But yeah, overall, I was like, miss me with that.
Yeah.
Don't need it.
Yeah, there were parts for me that I hated. Terrible. Most of it I really, really liked. So
I just wish it would have been more of a Plagueis story. Like I really wish it would have just
100%.
like 0.4 seconds of him in a cave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. My biggest issue with the Acolyte, really, when it gets right down to it, no joking, Andrew, is I didn't like the main character. Like, I just thought Osha was not likable. Like, I think Kamir was more interesting. I think Sue, what was the guy's name? The Korean guy.
Oh, Squid Game guy.
Soul? Yeah. Soul.
Yeah.
Soul. Yeah.
Master
I
Soul.
thought his story was really interesting. Just, I don't know. All of it just, yeah. I don't need to get into that, but well, awesome. Right. Scott, thanks for joining us for some Return of the Jedi talk. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah. We'll link your stuff, but can you just tell people where they can find you and what they should check out?
Yeah. I'm at Rogue Worship Leader on Instagram and TikTok primarily, and just make a lot of jokes that are mainly for church folks, but I use a lot of Star Wars stuff, so I try to keep it
a good mix of the two. But combine those two things. And then my website is Twin Suns Creative. Doing a lot of video production. And the Twin Suns obviously is a nod to my two favorite characters that both share space in Tatooine, Boba Fett and Luke. So yeah, had to go that route.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, dude, thanks for being on. Andrew, my friend, take us home. You can keep being on the show.
Thank you.
For your last episode. Okay. Andrew, take us home.
Then, yeah. Then in that case, if I'm allowed to stay, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We have a full video show on YouTube and Spotify. Otherwise, you can get our audio podcast wherever you get podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and you can follow on Spotify, actually. So you can follow us there too. But TikTok is growing, which is really fun. And Instagram Reels, those sections are really great for comments. So we have a topic that you guys like. Drop us a comment there, and we'll probably integrate it right into the show. It'll be really fun. So,
boom.
Heath, go see a movie.
Go see a movie. Scott, you want to say it too?
Sure. Go see a movie. I love that tagline. Awesome.
Nice.
Go see a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, go see a Star Wars movie.